the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hello and welcome. It is the third week in September, and it's been a strange week already. It's going to be a short week, and for a myriad of reasons. But first of all, I wanted to thank all the people who emailed me about checking in after Hurricane Florence to see how I was doing. And while it is true that the early tracks for Hurricane Florence took it right up to my doorstep, it did not get here. It did that left, well, I'm trying to do what I'm seeing on the screen versus what you're going to see when I'm looking. Anyway, it took a left turn and went into South Carolina, skirted Myrtle Beach, and then went further into South Carolina and then up around. So it bypassed Raleigh completely. Just did it's like there was a force field over top of central North Carolina, and it just went right around it. So, or right around it, depending on your angle. But we did get a lot of rain, a lot of branches down, a lot of wind, but not nearly the damage that our neighbors down in the what they call down east North Carolina got. People in New Bern, people in out on the coast in Wilmington and Sneads Ferry, in those areas, they got hammered. They got the flooding. They didn't get a lot of the trees down type of damage. They didn't get a lot of the heavy wind type of damage. They got the flooding damage, which is more insidious, because you can clean up a branch, but water, it's kind of hard to push away. So that happened, and as a result, that took time, energy, and attention away. Also, yesterday finally got the new AC units put in. That happened completely unrelated to the storm last week. My AC gave up the ghost, so I was in the whole thing of going out, getting bids, talking to different companies, getting getting prices, and so long and short of it is, yesterday I was working on the table a little bit, but mostly I was dealing with repairman running in and out of the house, so didn't get a lot done. So we are here at Tuesday now. The sun is shining. Sun came out yesterday finally. It's been shining all day today. If we could get a good day of drying in today, tomorrow I've got to get outside and get the yard cleaned up. There's, like I said, a lot of branches down, a lot of leaves and just debris that I've got to get up, and tomorrow's going to be the best day to do that. So that's going to take me away from working on the model. And I also need to get some paints, particular paint colors for this kit that I'm working on, which I will do tomorrow night, which is my monthly ModelWorks meeting with the guys, so we can check in and see how everybody else did. But let's get down to the table, and I'll show you what I did manage to get done yesterday. Okay, well, no surprise, I am working on this Joker kit. After having spent 7 weeks on the Epic Reliant build, I wanted something short and sweet and colorful that was not, shades of gray and a little bit of blue. I want something a little bit more interesting. So, working on the Joker kit, I had started working on it before, did some base coating, but the time to do some serious work is on me now. And here's what I did. Now, these Moebius kits, that the Batman series particularly, in this Joker kit you get 2 sets of arms so that you can do various poses, and this is the same thing that happened with the Robin figure and the Riddler figure. I mean, a wealth of options. So I took out the old trick that I did on the Robin, and I'm doing it on the Joker again, and that is to use magnets so that I can swap the arms out as I want to. The nice thing about this design is that the jacket has a heavy seam there, which is natural. That's just the way jackets are constructed. They have that seam there, so you don't have to worry about filling that in, which means you can stick on different arms. And the hands, you can also swap in and out for different poses. So I think what I'm going to do is leave the hand pegs the way they are and not glue them into the wrists. I may have to, I may not, who knows. But at this point, I'm not planning on it. And I did some preliminary paint work, not wild about any of these colors yet. This particular color of, you can always kind of go by the color of the plastic that it's molded in for these Batman kits to give you an idea of the final, what the final color should be. And we're going for a magenta type of color for the magenta color. See, they're talking about deep mauve for the colors of the suits and the pants and all that kind of stuff. But and I don't really have a wealth of that here, so I'm gonna go to when I go to the hobby shop tomorrow, I'm gonna pick up the actual ones. But what I'm concerned with is the pinstripes. Now, I don't care for. Let me see. I can show you the one on the box. Hold on one second. Okay, the illustration on the box shows you the colors that we're shooting for, and this is actually looks like almost a tinted over version of a screen capture, because the likeness on this illustration is very well done, very Cesar Romero, more so than I have to say the final sculpt of the face is. Let me pull because the actual model is on the bottom of the box, and I'm not wild about that face sculpt. It looks kind of strange. There's something wrong with the eyebrows and the narrowness of the face. But anyway, here's where it shows you the different arm variations. But those pinstripes are way too far apart and way too few. And also they're way too straight for going over all those wrinkles. They would not, I mean, I just don't get that. The person who painted this doesn't know how clothing is made. Because, and I say that to say this, basically pants are made of 4 pieces of material, and there's a seam, there's a seam in the crotch, there's a seam in here, and then there's a seam on the outside. I mean, take a look at your own clothing and you'll see that it is made up of various pieces of cloth. And if you have a pinstripe in your fabric, it doesn't mean necessarily that those stripes are continuous from top to bottom. If you're lucky, you'll get a stripe that goes all the way down the front, but they will not match the whole way down the seam. So what I'm coming up with is a tiny, way thin vinyl template that I am going to use to help paint the pinstripes on. And what you see here is actually the pinstripe color. And it's also a little bit too light a gray. I need to do a little bit darker on this. And so that's what I'm going to do today. But getting the shoes and the pants set up, that's one animal. And here you can see where I have embedded bigger magnets on both shoulder areas, and then smaller magnets in the actual piece, so that when you do that, it snaps on and you get a degree of posability and certainly interchangeability with the arms. So that's where we're at today. What I'm going to do, like I said, it's going to be a short week. It's going to be a not a lot of getting done week, but this is what we've got. Good morning, it's Thursday, and we're going to get a lot of painting done on the Joker today. I just have a feeling. Still need to finish up the storm cleanup or the yard cleanup in the backyard, but I can do some of that later on. Let's get back to the Joker. Now, last night I went to my monthly meeting. No, not AA, but it was my model club meeting, and it's held over at the fabulous Hangar 18 in Cary, the premier hobby shop, because they've got everything there. But I went over there to pick up some paint colors that I don't have, and most notably this magenta color. And I had to venture over into the Gundam aisle, which, you know, me and Gundams, you know how I feel. But Vallejo makes a very nice magenta in the Mecha line, and it's an airbrush color, but you have to dilute it pretty well because it can get a bit gummy. So I used that as my magenta for the, and it's coming out more of a purple here. You're not really seeing the reds all that well. For the Joker's jacket, well, let me show you. Okay, here's the color reference picture that I am using. It's a lot of magenta. It's a lot of magenta and green. So I'm going to try to add some more variations in there, you know, shading and whatnot with, you know, you see the magenta, you see the green, you see the black buttons. And then most notably, I wanted to see the pants here. The pants are not what you would call a typical pinstripe pants. They don't have a set pattern of pinstripes. You've got like fat line, thin line, fat line, fat line, thin line. And I'm not going to try to match these line per line, but I am going to vary my pinstripes for those two different thicknesses. And another third thing you'll notice is that his hair is a little yellower than the Kelly greens of his shirt. There's more of a yellow, almost a brown in there. So that's another way to give yourself a good variation, so not everything is the same dull, you know, two colors. The third thing is, and it may be on, oops, wrong one. It may be, here you go. Look at his wrist. His wrist is flesh colored. Between the glove and the sleeve, his wrist is flesh colored. So you don't know whether that's sloppy makeup or whether that is the fact that this Joker does not have mutated white skin, but is in fact wearing white makeup on his face. So we go with that idea, then that allows me to put another color in, so not everything is the same, like I say, magenta, white, and green. And now everyone is aware that Cesar Romero has a mustache. He didn't shave. He famously did not shave his mustache for this role because his career as the Latin heartthrob, his mustache was one of his trademarks. So they simply powdered over his mustache. Everybody knows that. And the model does have that detail molded in. You see little wispy mustache hairs. But that also means that none of his smile, none of the red makeup goes up into his mustache area. It's all on his top lip, and then these two spikes on either side, and then a fat bottom lip, but it does not go up into his mustache area. Now the hard part's going to be putting on his guy liner, because I don't know how detailed I can get on the model as far as putting the eyeliner in. And I think, do I have one more? Yeah, this is probably closer to the pose that was used on the and I think I have the next one is even better. Yeah, this is the pose that is used on the model. That's the facial expression. And look at these eyebrows. They're raised up here. They don't come down into his nose bridge near as much as the model does. So I'm going to be using this as the reference for painting his eyebrows, not necessarily what's on the model itself. And also, you know, for his eye pose and that sort of thing. But here you can see quite noticeably the mustache and how the lips should be drawn. Boy, he had some nasty orthodontia on that bottom teeth. But there you go. These are my color references. Clearly the hair is more yellow than the collar. And eyes are brown, and you could paint a little bit of flesh in around the eyes because the white makeup didn't go all the way in, so you get a little idea of how to put some flesh colors in the corner of the eye and that sort of stuff. But that's my color reference right there. So let's see how well we can translate that to the model. So here you go. This is the now these colors are very preliminary. This is the model part, and you can see, or the head sculpt, and you can see how they have the eyebrows coming way down into the crest of the eyes, and they're way too arched. So that's going to be a good instance where we might need to do some I don't know whether I need to sand those off and repaint them, or simply just ignore the highlights there and paint where they should be. But you can see the little wisp of mustache on the upper lip, and we're going to see how well we can do those goony eyes. But and I need to make, obviously need to make the hair a little bit more yellow. But I've painted in the jacket, and I'm happy with the color. But then I went in with some black and painted in some pre-shading in the wrinkles. And that's what I need to paint back over, obviously. So that's the ugly part before it gets pretty again. The magnets are doing a wonderful job. They are holding the arms, and I can swap them out. The gloves, I've got a lighter lilac color on them, and those need to have a dusting of the magenta over that, but I wanted to give some sort of color break to show that they're made of a different material than the jacket and the pants. And what I'm going to do is on the pants, of course this is painted the pinstripe color, I'm going to put in, you know, where I want I have two thicknesses of vinyl plotted for the strips, and I'm going to put in the major wide strips where I want them, and put in the thin ones in between. Now the sculpt on this is a lot more fitted, a lot more tailored than pictures I've seen of the full, you know, Joker head to toe, where those pants were not very well fitted and not very tight, and they were kind of baggy, just like well, just like Adam West's Batman suit was not skin tight. It was kind of baggy and wrinkled in places. So I think the pants here on the model are a lot more tailored than the baggy pants he actually wore. So you see more wrinkles here than you saw in the actual costume. So it's going to be a treat to follow the stripes over the wrinkles, wherein on the actual costume, like I said, the legs draped a lot. They draped a lot fuller than this. This is almost Action Man compared to the clown costume on the series. So let me put down some more of the major stripage and show you how that's turning out. Okay, the pants are striped. Now this may look a bit like Beetlejuice, but you have to remember you're seeing the opposite. Where there's yellow, where the black will stay, and then everything else is going to be this magenta color. So I guess the next thing to do is kind of press these guys down, make sure they're all nice and secure, and then mix up some of the magenta paint and get to painting. Okay, time to take a break. I've got a good first coat on the magenta over the stripes, and I'll probably dust that with one more coat before, just a light coat, before I take those stripes off. Same deal with the torso here. Look at the mess here. You can see this is a very strong color. It gets all over everything. And the problem with, or the issue with using these Vallejo colors is when you're used to using a particular line of paint, Tamiya or Testers or whatever, you kind of get into a groove. You know where your airbrush needs to be, pressure needs to be set, you know what the mix needs to look like, how runny, that sort of thing. And then you get into this new product, and all of a sudden the ratios are different, and you got to play with your air pressure, and you got to play with how hard you squeeze the trigger, and you got to play with how thick you need to mix it, and all of that. And that just means a lot of mess, and it means a lot of you know, trial and error, for lack of a better term. So it takes longer than if you're using something that you know of. And you know, it struck me just from doing all this painting that the Joker and the Riddler basically have, even though they have similar modus operandi, but the Joker and the Riddler basically have reverse color schemes from each other. The Riddler was green with purple accents, and the Joker is purple with green accents. So it's weird. It's just kind of a 180-degree flip. But I also got a lighter yellowish hair color. I'm happier with that as a base. Now I'm still going to have to go in and, you know, do some washes and some highlighting, but I'm happier with that base color than the green I had before. And of course I need to go back in and re-white a lot of that. But you can see how strong those eyebrows are. on his forehead, and they just shouldn't be that strong. So I'm just going to take a little bit of repainting and maybe some sanding down to get rid of the crest of the nose eyebrows. I am back from mowing the back half of the property today, and I am playing with the Joker some more. Now, before I went out, I played with some fine lines with the black just to try to draw some stuff in and to draw his lipstick in and his eyebrows, and just playing with some ideas there. It's coming along nicely, and I am removing now the stripes from his pants. And this is what you get. You end up with pink pants with black stripes on them, so he looks like a good and plenty. But let me get the rest of these stripes off. And there you go. So there, you have magenta pants with black stripes, some stripes wider than others to mimic the look of the costume. Now, it's true, there were spots where the vinyl didn't go down or didn't go into all of the valleys of the wrinkles. And it was easy enough once I took the tape off to kind of connect the dots with a fine line brush and a little bit of black paint. But certainly easier to do that than to try to paint stripes all the way down and keep an eye on where everything is going and not running into each other. Certainly easier to do it this way and then just go back in and touch them up by hand. Now, that stuff up at the waist don't worry about, because when the torso goes on, it covers all of that. So now all I got to do now is repaint the shoes and then give this guy a flat coat. Actually, I probably should flat coat it first and then paint the shoes, because the shoes should be shiny. Hence the term shoe shine. Well, this is where we're going to leave the Joker for today, which is good because what's today? Thursday. It gives me all of tomorrow to tighten up the paint job on his face and glue the rest of the pieces together that still need to go. And I might have time to build a prop or two. I was thinking that the joy buzzers in his hands aren't quite what I was thinking. I might want to, and I might even have the scrap parts around here just to put like a little round bomb in his hand. So, you know, the old stereotypical ball with a fuse on it type of bomb. You know, the ones some days you just can't get rid of. One of those. But I wish you'd be able to finish this up pretty darn quickly and without much more fuss. Good morning, it's Friday, it's the final day on the Joker build. I've got 2 jobs to do today. Job 1 is to finish the head, which I've started doing some detail work on. And job 2 is to finish the rest of the build, and that's what I'm going to do first. Now, this morning I went out and put a dull coat or a flat coat, and I use Krylon Clear, just, you know, whether it's flat or satin or gloss. I just use the Krylon Clears out of the big rattle cans for that. And I thought I would do something fun with this hand. Get mine out of the gutter, folks. I'm going to put just an old-fashioned round bomb in that, and I went through my stash of spare parts. Everybody's got a drawer of spare parts and stuff, and I had this wooden ball that I must have used the other ones for another project, but I've got this one left over. So I drilled a hole, stuck a magnet in it, and I'm thinking that here are the kit supplied joy buzzers, and they are about the size of a magnet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if I can find them. Where did they go? They are tricky. Well, here's one on the thing. Here's basically one of the magnets, and it's about the same size as that joy buzzer. So I'm just going to glue the magnet down to the center of the palm, and it'll look like a joy buzzer, except for when I pop the bomb over top of it. So all I need to do now is get a coat of paint on this guy, and then I'm going to stick a fuse out of the top, and it'll be fun. Okay, so I'm working on the Cesar Romero Joker face. I should put a Lady Gaga joke in here about Joker face. But I had to respray his forehead and cheeks and into his eyes because I could not get the good white coverage with a brush that I needed, particularly on his area of his brow. So I needed to respray all of that. But not so much that I can't see the underlying lines And since they were fairly easy to put on the first time, I think I can recreate those. But this will allow me to... what was happening is this green here from the forehead was bleeding in, and no matter how much paint I put over it, the green kept bleeding through. But for some reason, when I sprayed it, I didn't get that issue, only when I was brushing it. So cleaned it off, resprayed it, let this dry. Now I can go in with the tiny brush and like repaint in the individual green hair strands on the forehead to kind of make that transition a little bit more smooth. Plus I can repaint the eyebrows and the eyes, knowing what I know now about how easy that is to do. So first thing I'm going to do is retouch the lipstick up, because that's easy enough to do and it doesn't mess with any of the other paint. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and do a flat coat on that now, just to lock those colors in. But let me repaint that mouth first. Okay, I've been inching my way up to the pupils, and I know there is this great desire or tendency or instruction to paint the Joker looking down, where you have tremendous tops of the whites of the eyes visible. And I don't know if I want to do that. It doesn't seem to want to naturally be molded that way. Now I've painted the inside of the eyes more of a fleshy color, and then it's easier to do like a white highlight on top of that. But to paint everything white with white on top of it, it's getting a little tough to see where the weeds are. So, but he looks like he wants to be looking to his left rather than straight down. So I'm going to try a couple of things to see whether I like that better. But I'm at the risk of building up too much paint in there on his eyeballs just from going over it and over it. So we're going to let that dry, and I'm going to walk away, have some lunch, and come back to it. But I like my bomb. I think that's kind of neat, and I'm happy with his... I'm happy with... Oh, come on, focus. There you go. Focus. I'm happy with his smile. I'm happy with his teeth. Happy with his hair, finally. I was painting in some detail, and it was starting to look comic booky, which is, okay, acceptable, but it was almost looking like a drawing rather than a painting of a three-dimensional object. So that's, yeah, I like his teeth. There's the focus. So you could kind of see where the eyeballs want to be just by the high spot on the sculpt. And it doesn't want to be looking straight down, so I'm gonna have to think about that and see where it is I want to put them. But had plenty of time this afternoon to do that. It's just a couple of dots, so best to not rush it. We'll put him back on his base, and I'll go take a break. Okay, I think I'm happy with the face. I did decide in the end to go with the downward look when I realized that where he is standing in connection with the rest of the other models, he will be up higher, and so looking down on the rest of the characters does make more sense. So we'll let that go, but I've got a gloss over the eyes. I think once that gloss is dried, I'll see whether I need to put a white highlight on it. But other than that, I think we're done. I think it's good. So, a little bit of cleanup here is in order, or is called for, is necessary. It's got to happen. Let's get this mess cleaned up. Okay, there you go, all finished. I think what I might like to do now is go join them up with the rest of the Batman characters and make one big display out of it. Okay, here you have the Joker in situ with Catwoman and Batman. And see, there you go, about him being up at a higher elevation, so having him look down does make sense. But I noticed something here, and anybody who has any of these kits will probably no doubt notice the same. These two bases fit together wonderfully, but at some point they just gave up the ghost and said, we're not really interested in making these bases join up like the grand plan was, because none of the rest of them have anywhere near that level of interlockedness. It's a shame, really, because it would have made a really nice display that way. And the one that really stands out is Robin, because looks like he needs to go with his back to Batman, which kind of also puts his back to the Joker. It's kind of strange that way, but if you want to say that he's busy fighting the Riddler, then I suppose it works. And then Penguin, if you're to follow the bottom of the bat, the Penguin would be something like that. So yeah, I guess Robin fits pretty well up against Batman's base, but it, like I say, it turns him on his defensive side. That has to come down like that, but the Penguin base doesn't fit in there at all. And yeah, the Riddler and the Penguin just are odd man out there. Has to look something like that. But their gang's all here. Now there's an obvious missing one, and that is Batgirl that goes in the back. And if that's ever made, then the set will be complete. But for now, that's the lot of them. And that's where we're going to close it off for the week. Nice to get these after spending, epic 7 weeks on the Reliant. It's nice to get these little 1 week kits pushed through the system. Don't have the first idea about what's going to be next week, but I'm sure it'll be fun and we'll figure it out together. So until then, be good to each other, and we'll see you back here next time.